Hello, everybody. Welcome to the latest edition of our podcast series titled K-Hub, Driving Trade Excellence. In this edition, we invited Dr. Arpita Mukherjee, Professor ICRIER and a noted trade expert, to share her views on the rise in ultra-processed food industry and the growing regulatory scrutiny on this sector in global trade. Conversely, she also shared how this scenario opens up opportunities for Indian processed food industry to explore global markets and enhance its market share with particular focus on fruit-based beverages. She also shares her suggestions on how the policymakers can facilitate this growth. Good morning, Arpita ma'am. Thank you so much for taking time out of your incredibly busy schedule and joining us for this interaction on the growth of ultra-processed foods and what it means for our industry as well as for India's nutrition security. So, yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much, Virat, for having me here.
So, ma'am, first of all, for our viewers, can we have a clear definition from you on what exactly is meant by processed and ultra-processed foods? Because I think it's a relatively less used terminology in trade and even in general, discussions. So, can we start with that, please?
Every food needs some amount of processing. If you want to increase the shelf life of an apple, you need to do certain kind of processing, right? Sorting, grading. Ultra-processed food is actually defined as an individual or composite food and beverage which is high in fat, sugar, and salt, and it has lesser of the beneficial nutrients like protein, vitamin, minerals. So you are looking at the ingredient of the product, and the ingredient of the product says that it is beyond a certain level of salt, beyond a certain level of sugar, and it is beyond a certain level of fat, and trans fat is bad. So India has also banned trans fats, right? So it is looking at the content of this thing rather than the food in itself. So same food, just to give you a more detailed perspective, a same food can be a healthy food and unhealthy or ultra-processed food. For example, 100% fruit juice, which is no added sugar and stuff like that, and with the free sugar of the limits of prescribed limits and the quantity and volume that you intake, all of that factor is considered to be very healthy. The same thing if you are adding sugar and making it extra sweet and stuff like that, and larger volume you are content, that is actually becoming ultra processed. Now the issue is often these ingredients like sugar, salt are added to increase the shelf life of the product.
Right. And you created a report with the WHO on the rise of ultra-processed foods in India. So on one end, we have a high rate of malnutrition, but do you think, therefore, ultra-processed food is an issue which is happening on the other extreme? Can you give some examples in this regard to substantiate?
Virat, India, see, basically the facts are very simple that Indian economy is rising. We are one of the fastest growing economies in the world. Our per capita income is rising and ability to buy product is rising, and consumers are experimenting. At the same time, if you see a lot of surveys that are done by NIN and National Council for Medical Research, they are showing that, in India, the diabetes is rising, obesity is rising, and other health problems like heart attacks and others are rising. And these are directly being linked to your lifestyle and your food that you are having, and access to the food also, Virat, in this particular case. See, wherever we talk about a healthy food, even within the processed, we say the same thing. If it is a rice, has a price. If it is an organic rice, it is double price. Same is happening in the case of the nutrition. The moment the food is becoming a nutritious food, it is becoming expensive. and today obesity and heart problems are no, and diabetes is not a rich man's illness anymore in India, if you see the data.
Right. Indeed, as you mentioned, it's about the access which, is leading to these problems. Now, next, I would like to ask, vis-a-vis the trade perspective, how do you see the rise of the rise of processed food segment, the growth, and how is this segment going to be impacted with the rise in health conscious consumers? Because I'm asking this with reference to, what kind of opportunities Indian exporters have in this segment as health conscious consumers are rising.
Globally, even before COVID-19, after COVID-19, two things are happening. One is in the case of certain food and beverage, which the world is changing. Let me give you an example. Around 122 countries globally have some form of layered tax on beverages. They are also putting obesity tax on sugar sweetening beverages. So what is happening is that global players are reformulating their product. They are making the product less sugar, or even if you are selling mango pulp now to the European Union, they are checking the sweet content within the mango pulp, and they are moving. European Union have directives on free sugar. I'm just giving you some of these examples. So what is happening today in India is that fruits and vegetables we export much less than what we produce. We are one of the globally large producers: food, vegetable, milk, sugar. Think about beverages, we are quite there. But when we export less. Now, if you just look at the fruit and vegetable category of export, you are ranking not even among the top 50. In spite of being the topmost producer. That is a thought that our industry and exporters need to think about. So the world is changing, and the world is going for a layered sugar-based tax. In India, what is happening is this: the sugar-based tax is not there, and there is no incentive to go for low sugar products. So what is happening is sugar is also cheap because sugar is subsidized. So you are using sugar to increase the shelf life. You are using lesser fruits and vegetables, but these products are getting rejected in the international market. So we are not meeting the requirements. But if we are able to meet the requirements, because India first thought that we are not able to meet the exportable requirement of the type of fruits and vegetable that is needed for processing. For the past 5 to 10 years, government have focused on that issue. Now that we will be having the type of vegetables that is needed for processing, we need to focus on what are the other regulations that can impact our export. And one of this is the ingredients that we are using in the beverages. And the most important ingredient that is looked upon with a very stringent eye is sugar, level of sugar. And some countries look at free sugar. Some countries look at added sugar. So there is a requirement variation as well within that. But if you are following certain requirement laid down by the European Union and others, you are covering quite a few countries in the world.
So, what do you think? What are the global best practices which are being followed by competitor countries or companies in those countries, which Indian F&B companies need to be aware of, so that they can not only grow or even sustain their current market share of exports in fruits and beverages?
Most important thing is some of the best practices. See, there is a company level best practice and there is a policy level best practice. Okay. When you are looking at the company level best practice, what the Indian companies are thinking sometimes is very narrow. They are thinking that, there is a large domestic market, I am going to sell. But what a Euromonitor and other database, Euromonitor is the one that you give a product growth by nutrition. And if you look at their data, and we have got the data in the last 10 years from 2011 to 21, if high sugar carbonated beverages have a growth of less than 5%. But if you look at coconut water and 100% juice, you will see a growth of double digit or even more. So, and you see many startups are coming up in these healthy products. So what I'm trying to say is that Indian consumers are growing conscious. And initially there was this thought process during COVID and others that we will not have carbonated beverages, but we will move into, say, juice or milk. But now consumers are also very conscious about the sugar level, because post-COVID diabetic has shot up. So there is a restriction on sugar-based food. So they are now thinking that, they are looking at the ingredients. And this is our study shows that if consumers are looking at ingredients and they are changing, it may be that these commodities that are coming into the market as new commodities like 100% juice or these are going to take away the market share. Already, juice is taking, carbonated beverages is declining, juice is taking up. But at the same time, what is happening is that the problem is there is a mismatch between there is a lack of product classification. I am studying beverages in detail because each of these products require a product classification. Sugar levels even in a biscuit vary. Similarly, you have low sugar biscuit like Marie biscuit, or high sugar biscuits are also there. So now when I am studying, and I'm still studying, so I have not drawn any conclusion. What I find is that beverages today in the market are of different sugar levels. However, generally what happens is in countries, the Food Safety Authority draws up the classification based on the tax authorities do the classification. The other consumer awareness authorities classify the product as red or, very high quality. So there is a consumer awareness classification that you know what you are eating, and based on that the healthier products get a market share. Sometimes incentives are also linked to healthy productions, like incentive is given for fruits and vegetable production or on input, so that fruits and vegetable cost is reduced, like this. So basically it is a package of the measures on beginning with the product classification, moving into the tax and subsidies, encouraging companies to move into that. And sometimes organizations like WHO propose a very high 40% tax. They propose it on the assumption that when there is a high tax, it will be a high price and consumers will choose the product with a low price. But high tax may not operate in a country like India because of a few reasons. Most important being is that sugar is highly subsidized. So even if it is high tax, my cost of production doesn't reduce. Maybe my profit reduce, but I'm shifting it to, I'm not shifting the burden to the consumer. So consumer is not facing a high price. So today what is happening is, because sugar for my manufacturing is subsidized also, it is not like sugar by the use, it is subsidized also. For a manufacturer, they have to use sugar compared to other thought process, because fruits and vegetables is expensive. I'm just giving you the example of fruits and vegetables, but it operates on all account. They are also catering to a taste. So if Indians want a high salty snack, they are catering to the salty snacks. But as Indian taste is changing, doctors are guiding people to have a different type of food. People are going for healthy food. Taste will change. But these guys also need to accommodate to the taste, and as well as accommodate to the thing. And tax and subsidies help you to actually go out into renovation. Like I was talking to many startups, and they say that, our law firms guide us that you can produce high sugar juice, but don't invest in fizzy drink, invest in juice. Globally the fizzy drink market is very big, and India, because our volumes of fruits, processable fruits and vegetables is low, we have huge opportunity. From Northeast, let's look at fizzy pineapple drink. We are not able to do that because we are not meeting the global market requirement. So if we are putting a lot of fruits and making a fizzy pineapple drink, which is less sugar and less added sugar, that should be in a lower tax category. You understand? That should not be a 40% tax. And if you look at the vision of our Prime Minister, more than 8 to 10 years ago, he already said that if 2% fruit is added in a carbonated drink, it benefits the farmer. Imagine if carbonated drinks add 25 to 50% fruits. You know how much benefit it goes to the farmer. So if that is the vision of this country, taxes have to be, or subsidies have to be linked to that vision. That's my point.
So what do you think should be the way forward for government and in collaboration with the industry to ensure that we do not lose this opportunity, which is definitely a challenge presently, but it's an opportunity for the future, which requires just little adaptation. So what steps do you recommend for all stakeholders?
There are many industry-based practices within your industry. For example, Dabur has already taken a voluntary pledge to reduce sugar. You know, in many countries, the big beverage manufacturers, be it Coca-Cola or Pepsi, they have taken measures to voluntarily reduce. They are adhering to these layered standards, right? Otherwise, Thailand would not have been one of the largest fruits and vegetables and juice producers. So it's not like they are not doing it elsewhere. They are doing it elsewhere. These guys had SMEs, they are doing it elsewhere, and that can be replicated. Where is India different? In India, 80% of the juice industry, I'm giving you the juice example to substantiate. The juice industry, 80%, or the beverage industry, 80% is in the informal sector. So from a tax authority perspective, it is not able to at all get a tax from this 80%. The focus should be to formalize this informal sector. When you're talking about sustainable food system in the context of building resilient supply chain, which is the focus of India, you have to help MSMEs to grow, MSMEs to formalize through appropriate means of tax and subsidies, where subsidizing healthier product is a key component. So first of all, when you tell the industry that if you do this, you are going to get the subsidy, the protest is much less. You work with the industry on a targeted timeline on how they can change their product. Having said that, high sugar product should be in the highest tax bracket, because that's the global norm. Because if you do not put in certain global norm, you will not be able to help industry to renovate. But at the same time, if somebody is coming out with 100% fruit juice, why should that person be taxed at 11%? That should be 5%. Tax the lowest for the product that is healthy, tax the lowest for the water, because water is healthy. Water, if somebody is buying water, tax the lowest for the water, tax the lowest for the healthy fruit. If it is aerated water, tax the lowest for that. If it is low sugar content, accordingly layer your tax. So every company will have their manufacturing which will go. Then you will be finding some company who will be protesting. Not all. You have to discuss with them about the potentials. You have 122 countries, not Europe and America alone, right? It covers a huge amount of countries who vary. But if they, some country has 7-layer tax, some country has 3-layer tax, some countries have excluded products. But as you start operating, and the excluded products often do not follow scientific logic. Some countries have even excluded wines because they are producing wines. So it is not a scientific logic. So industry lobbying does happen But keeping into account that industry lobbying does happen, if industry understands their true potential of using the Indian raw material to be a bigger and better part of the global value chain, and probably from 50 they would not reach top 10, but from 50 if they reach top 25 in terms of exports, I think that's something amazing. Because if 10 years you have been below 50, you're 59th exporter of fruit juices, and you suddenly able to reach 25, I think that's a great achievement for the industry. In the country like India, a tax authority has a lot of problems. The tax authority has to balance multiple things. They have to balance their tax collection with the concept that industry needs to be encouraged to innovate and formulate. And there is also the third point is that health. And health is very important, because can you imagine if you have the largest population in the world, what is your health cost burden? So fiscal authority has to think about that.
That's absolutely true, ma'am. I'm just a little intrigued to ask you because we've talked about CBAM, we've talked about e-commerce. So, a lot of new issues coming up in trade agreements. So, do you see the scope, or are you seeing it already that, FTA negotiations, maybe not with India, with the different negotiations happening around the world, are they beginning to talk about these kind of issues as well?
Yes, Virat, you look at the see, now we are talking about resilient food systems, sustainable food systems. Now, most of the time, most of these, they are actually looking at fresh produce at the time, animal health, animal, the kind of medicines, because, this has a reflection on milk, right? MRLs and stuff like that. But they are now, if you look at the EU food, sustainable food system, the last mile is actually nutrition and consumers. I'm just giving you one example because it is now coming up so big, in a big way. And that is the reason why we are top exporters of agri product, but not among the top 20 exporters of processed food product. And if we process in India, that's where the value addition is.
Indeed, ma'am, that's a very interesting development for Indian industry, and thank you so much for your time today on this discussion. And I'm sure even it's brought some concepts in my mind on what kind of further research or consultation we could do in this regard, because this is certainly a topic which Indian government and industry need to pick on aggressively, given its growing importance in the world of trade. Thank you so much, ma'am, for your time.
Virat, thank you very much for having me here. We are working in silos on this topic with two different segments of stakeholders with certain level of overlap. As a part of our WHO mandate, we cannot work with the industry. So we are working with the nutritionists, policymakers, and other experts, academicians with the WHO, and part of their advisory committee on SSBs and stuff like that. We are supporting that. However, I can tell you, I am also having a project with Indian Beverages Association, and I am amazed to see the interest of the industry to understand and renovate, because the beverages at the top level are driven by global multinationals, and even domestic companies, larger ones, are willing to actually go. It is a contract manufacturing process. If you look at the process versus sales and export, it is the contract manufacturing process, and after you do your contract manufacturing, you are selling it to either the retailers for their own brands, or you are selling it to the global manufacturers who will be sourcing from this country, right? So and we have not really developed our global brands as of yet, apart from some companies. Huge opportunity for the Indian industry. But where there is an opportunity, there is also a risk. And that risk, we have to look into how what kind of support we need from the government to minimize the risk, enhancing our competition and maximizing the efforts. I think these are very, very important things for us to have a look at.
Right. Certainly, ma'am, they're very important areas you've highlighted. Thank you so much once again for your time, ma'am.
Thank you very much, Virat. Hope to be in touch. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you.
Bye.
Okay, ma'am.